What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Bayou Bengals Football Talk. So I wanted to get into it. So there was a lot of good player interviews today. Wanted to touch on some of the things the guy said. So they interviewed Garrett Dellinger. They interviewed Dellinger is their starting guard, or projected to be their starting guard, a guy that has played some meaningful snaps for them. They interviewed Chris Hilton Jr., their wide receiver, Greg Brooks Jr., their starting free safety. Now, he might play a different position this year, but it was last year was their free safety. They interviewed Jacoby and Gilroy. Gilroy had some really interesting things to say, so let's get into it. We'll start with what Garrett Dellinger said. So Dellinger, this guy, he made a good point about the heat. You know, you really have to just take in the high 100, 110 degree heat, and then, your body kind of gets used to it after a few minutes. You just kind of, this is what I'm saying, not his words, but it's what I'm saying. Your body just starts to kind of adapt to that heat, and you really just sweat a lot. So, Dellinger, a talented guy. He's a really good run blocker, really can sustain run blocks, does a good job of executing combo blocks, has the ability to block in the second level. So Dellinger, a guy that started, 6 games last year for him, has the versatility to play guard and center. I think interior is where he's really going to thrive. I think he does have the capability to play offensive tackle, but just how good of a run blocker he is, they really want to keep him at center and guard, even though he does have the ability. He is a solid pass blocker, is a little bit limited as far as lateral movement. I think that's what kind of hinders his success as a pass blocker, but overall, a really good run blocker and a really good football player. So I like Dellinger. I like what he had to say. I think he answered a lot of the questions really well, and he talked about how the offensive line is really a strong, cohesive unit this year. I thought that was really cool. Said that Emory Jones and Will Campbell have really taken necessary steps to continue to improve. So I think that's awesome that those guys are making a pact to continue to get better even after such exceptional freshman years. I think that is really what's in those guys' DNA, though, to continue to get better and not just to be satisfied with being good. Those are both guys that really have a chance to be elite players. I mean, Will Campbell, probably a potentially top 3 to 5 pick in the 2025 NFL draft when he's eligible, and Emory Jones a chance to be a first-round pick as well. Those guys are true difference makers, especially Will Campbell. He's definitely an impact difference maker on the offensive line. And I think that's cool. I think it's always fun when you hear a guy saying high praise for his teammate. But yeah, I think, Dellinger, he said, I like that he reiterated, like some of the other guys, their goal is to win a national championship. He said that, I like that he acknowledged that was cool that they're ranked in the top 5, and not only in the coaches poll, but in the AP poll. I like that he reiterates that they are looking to win a national. They are their goal is set on winning a national title, and I like that. I love guys setting goals high. You might as well set your goals high. If you. Even if you don't achieve your high end goal, you might, still achieve some really good goals. Like, setting the goal for the national championship, they could have a season where they win the SEC title and not win the national title. And, in their minds, is that still a successful season? Maybe to some it's not, but I think to many, especially LSU fans, that, winning in the SEC, making the playoff, maybe not winning the national title would be a really successful year. So I like that they're setting the bar high, and Dellinger is reiterated that he is a guy who has his sights set on a national title. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what Greg Brooks said. So Greg Brooks was recently dealing with vertigo. I thought it was either a shoulder or leg injury, but he was dealing with vertigo, and he will be back at practice tomorrow. Greg Brooks, a guy who transferred from Arkansas. I've touched on him a little bit. He's a really tough, savvy player, guy that gets after it, can tackle, will hit, does have the ability to create turnovers. So, yeah, Greg Brooks, likely going to be their starting free safety once again. With all with all the guys showing flashes in some of the transfers, maybe they do move Greg Brooks around a little bit. I've kind of heard some different things as far as who's starting at what position. But yeah, Greg Brooks is definitely his veteran presence, his his competitive toughness is certainly a key aspect to this LSU football team. And he had high praise for the wide receiver core, reiterated how good that Aaron Anderson looks. I think reporters almost really want the guys to say good things about Aaron Anderson, because it seems like almost every person asks, every player, coach interview, the reporters are always asking about Aaron Anderson. So they must be seeing good things. And obviously, the players usually say good things about their teammate, but they really do back it up with enthusiasm that Aaron Anderson has looked good and that he will be a bright spot on this football team in the fall, or come when the season starts. But yeah, I want to touch it real quickly. So Michael Daugherty, there's a safety they got too. I really like his game a lot. I have not really heard much about him. I can't remember. Was he one of the guys that? I don't think he was one of the guys banged up. But yeah, he has a really nice skill set. So I'm be interesting to hear more buzz from him in camp. I keep hearing, Greg Brooks, I think. So Brooks, one of them was reiterating how the Deuce Chestnut's really good. So Deuce Chestnut, I've heard, I'm not at practice. I don't get to evaluate these guys in practice, but I like what I've seen from Deuce Chestnut, and his experience was something that Brian Kelly was excited about. And you hear from multiple people now that Deuce Chestnut is doing some good things in practice. So it's good to really hear that Deuce Chestnut is playing well. So I think that Chestnut is kind of like the typical the perfect perfect kind of transfer LSU needs. They needed a guy who maybe doesn't have if you're looking maybe doesn't have an all around elite skill set. Maybe not really anything necessarily elite about his game. You could argue his tackling, but other than that, it's a lot of really good. But even though he doesn't really have multiple elite factors to his game, I think his experience and his enough talent combined with his experience playing in the division in a Power 5 school in Syracuse, I think that's exactly what LSU was looking for in a starting corner this year. To me, Brian Kelly, he understood that there's especially cornerback, there's really not a lot of huge, you're not going to land a Christian Gonzalez type of NFL difference maker at corner every year. So why not get a guy who's a really good talent, a guy that's played high level football for the Syracuse Orange the last couple of years? Why not bring him in and likely have him, even if he doesn't win the job, then you at least have a key backup who has some upside. So Deuce Chestnut continues to get a lot of praise from the coaches and his teammates too. So we'll talk Jacobian Gilroy. We'll talk what he said. Jacobian Gilroy, kind of a forgotten about guy a little bit, but I've heard from Matt House and some of the coaches that he's coming along well. Gilroy is a talented player, and I like what he said. He said multiple things I like that I'm going to get to, but I like what he said. He told Harold Perkins and Ovio Gofu that he's going to take on the challenge of taking on double teams so those guys can roam and make plays. I really like that. You think about defensive tackles in college football, NFL, high school, they're some of the most unselfish players on a football team. The ability, guys that will eat up double teams, just hold the point of attack so linebackers can go and make tackles and get all the stats. That's really a testament to Gilroy being an unselfish player and really about the team. So, but if you watch Gilroy, he does get off the snap pretty quick. He's a guy that plays with pretty good leverage, is explosive too when he strikes at the point of attack, and he is stout against the run. Can plug up holes, just like he said. A good tackler, so he's another guy that Wingo, Mason Smith going to be the guys at D tackle. But Gilroy, when he comes in and gets his snaps, can they give him hot? Can they get quality snaps from him? And can he not really be much of a drop off from Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith? Like when they rotate him in, is the offensive lineman across from him sighing like, oh man, here's another dude that's just going to get after it and is strong and is physical and is explosive and is going to get after me. So can Gilroy be that guy? I think is the main question. I think he can, and I like what he said. He's reiterating the goals to win a national championship, and they asked him, how good do you think this team can be? And he goes, I don't think the question is how good we can be. I'm quoting him now. I think the question is how great we can be. So I think it's cool that you have multiple guys really I think last year, like Brian Kelly said, they were kind of setting the tone of what this team's going to be. I think this year, now you got really guys believing in what it could be. And I've always said in life, there's a difference between thinking you can do something and truly believing. So, I know Gilroy's. I know at this point it's all talk with all due respect to him, but to me, deep down, it's a good chance he truly believes this. And, not just him. I think there's a lot of guys on this LSU football team. They can do something special this year. Charles Turner said his goal is to win a national title. So I think that's really cool. You got guys truly believing that they can, or that it appears that guys are believing they can bring home a national title this year. So yeah, Gilroy going to play a key role in this LSU football team. He's a talented defensive tackle. Pretty big-time recruit, if I remember right, 4-star guy. So, yeah, they need a good year out of him. Talking to Chris Hilton Jr. A little bit, said working through an injury was tough, but now he's back fully healthy, and he's one of the guys that's been making buzz in camp. And Chris Hilton Jr. He was the talk about running with the ones. Appears he's probably going to be one of the key number twos. It seems like Lacey, Neighbors, Brian Thomas going to be the three main guys. But Chris Hilton, if Chris Hilton maximizes his skill set like he's capable of, and displays the high-end talent, I think he can be like Kyron Lacey, like Brian, as good as those guys, and really make a huge impact for LSU and just add some really good depth to this wide receiver core. So yeah, I like Hilton's game. I was worried about some of the drops. He had some drops in the spring game, had a couple drops in practice. I know that was only a couple clips. It might have just been wrong time, wrong place, right time. Maybe I'm just kind of watching him. He's had drops just when I happened to be watching. But yeah, a guy that you saw, he had like a 60-yard touchdown play a couple years ago in the bowl game. So this guy is capable of explosive big plays. He's got some size. He's got some run after the catch ability. He has really an all-around skill set to have a breakout season. And like I said, be right up there with Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey is kind of like the second tier playmakers on this team behind Malik Neighbors at the wide receiver position. But yeah, I think. And it was interesting. Greg Brooks also said Sage Ryan's getting some work at corner. To me, Sage Ryan, I like Sage Ryan. I just think that, I worry with Sage Ryan, where does he fit in with this team? I think maybe corner is the best case scenario for Sage Ryan as far as playing meaningful snaps in this football team. Because Ryan can play the nickel. He can play... He's a good enough athlete. He could play safety. He could play nickel. He could play outside corner. I think this is a guy that, even if he doesn't start, you got to find a way to get him on the field. I know they've said that about a couple guys in the secondary, but Sage Ryan, just to me, this is a guy you just don't. You want to keep happy. You don't. I mean, if he obviously this is all speculation, but to me, if he does transfer, that I don't know, that's a different story potentially down the road. But you want to keep. This is a guy that I guess the bottom line I'm trying to make is Sage Ryan is talented enough where you want to get him some snaps, and whether that's rotating him in, like let's say Chestnut starts at one corner, but Chestnut is not really just dominant. I feel like you got to sneak in some snaps of. With Sage Ryan, and even and put him in some, if teams go 4 wide, maybe put him as the other nickel, put him in the slot. So yeah, I think Sage Ryan, he does, has not really necessarily lived up to some of the hype he came in with as a highly touted 5-star guy, but does show enough ability that can make some plays for this team, and does show the ability to cover man-to-man really well. So I think Sage Ryan, it'll be interesting to see. Number one, does he win the starting job? I feel like from what you're hearing, you feel like that's a long shot at this point. But how does Sage Ryan do this year? A talented player, former 5-star guy. We'll kind of see how. The season we'll see how the season goes for him, and we'll see how much he plays against Florida State, and if so, how impactful and how well he plays. But yeah, kind of just hoping to hear more. I think a lot of LSU fans are just kind of dying to see who wins the start, what the initial depth chart is for Florida State. I think that's kind of like the next thing we're craving as LSU fans. What is that initial depth chart? I'm here. Ashton Stamps is doing some great things. Ashton Stamps, a guy that, I initially watched his tape kind of not in a really good mindset. I was thinking immediately think 3-star corner, smaller guy, only 170 pounds. So I kind of went into it thinking, I don't know, who knows, is this the guy that, they kind of just offered because he was an in-state, but, when you really watch Stamps' tape for a while, you really say this is a testament to LSU's recruiting that, to me, sometimes maybe this isn't always the case now, but I feel like there was times maybe teams just kind of threw scholarships at a 3-star guy. To me, him, Jackson McGowan, I love that LSU is not just throwing scholarship Brathwaite too. I love that LSU is not just recruiting 3-stars for the sake of. I love that they are actually going after 3-stars who have legitimate high-end traits, and that's McGowan, Stamps, Brathwaite. All those guys all have legitimately good overall skill set. They have, especially Stamps. I mean, he has a extremely fluid, quick back pedal. Jackson McGowan is definitely a very good threat at receiver, a guy that can play in the slot and the outside. Now, Meg Denbrock said maybe he still is not comfortable putting him out there because he's a little bit undersized, so worries about putting him out there as far as blocking is concerned at about 230 pounds. But I really am a fan of some of the 3-star guys they brought in this year. Trey Holly, too, at running back. You hear some good things of him, Caleb Jackson. So I love that LSU is making emphasis not only to go after some high-end, not only to go after the high-end 4-star, 5-star guys like the LSU, Georgia, and Alabama do every year. Let's find some 3-star gems. And I think Jackson, McGowan, Ashton Stamps are perfect examples of 3-star gems. And I'll even throw Brathwaite in there too. So I think, it's a little bit early now, and this may just be the fan coming out of me. I think that LSU, when you look back at if LSU does something special in the next couple of years, I think you're really going to look at this class. I think you're going to look back and say, wow, this is a very good incoming freshman class. Now, is it going to be as special potentially I don't know, like what's another notable class, like 2011 Florida State or 2012 Florida State, or Alabama's had a few good ones. Clemson's 2015 class, like, is it going to be up there with that? Obviously it's way too early to tell, but I think that would even be a stretch to say, but I think that, the class they're bringing in this year is the perfect class to combine with what they did last year, like Harold Perkins, elite linebacker last year, potentially elite corner, maybe an elite tight end, really good linebacker, a speedy, quick edge rusher in Womack. I think, these two classes, a lot of times that's what wins the national title. It's not necessarily one elite recruiting class. It's one elite recruiting class and then one or two other really good recruiting classes. So I think that's what LSU, I think last year was really good recruiting class, led by Harold Perkins, and I think this year has a chance to be really good again, if not elite. So yeah, you combine the two classes and you really got something cooking there, especially, and then even the class 2 years ago, Dellinger, Mason Smith, Sage Ryan, it's a cycle. It's a cycle of repeated really good classes. To win national championships in college football, as much as people want to debate it, you need top 3, you need top 5 recruiting classes consistently over probably at least 2 to 3 over a 4-year span, ideally, if you want to win a national championship. It's so hard to win a national championship if you're not recruiting at a top 10 level. When you see LSU, LSU really has been a high-end level recruiting team for a long time now. Les Miles is an excellent recruiter. Ed Orgeron, I think, was a good recruiter. I think he was more of a beneficiary of recruiting good enough, but he was combining Les Miles as players. So I think Ed Orgeron, even though he did, even though he did bring in some talent, you saw that he doesn't. I don't think he was bringing it in at a high enough level to try to overcome some of the the losses they had amassed. Like if you think about it, like Sage Ryan was starting 2 years ago at nickel under Ed Orgeron in 2021. And you think now, like Sage Ryan's a guy, even though Sage Ryan had his touchdowns, a talented guy, he's battling to potentially not only is he battling to start, he's battling to even get playing time. I think that's a key sign that a coaching staff, whether it's college, the NFL, is bringing in a lot of talent. Is because what happens is guys that have been there are starting to fight for spots. If Ed Orgeron stays there, maybe LSU recruits pretty well, but maybe Sage Ryan is locked in a starting position. And, not to be like, it sounds like I'm being negative towards Sage Ryan. I think he's a good player, but, in programs like LSU, and if you want to do something special and win a national title, guys like that always need to be competing, and guys like that always need to know that their job is potentially in jeopardy and that they are going to have to battle every day to hold their starting job. And that's why I worried about with Greg Brooks. Greg Brooks is a good player, but, like, is he good enough where he can just continue to miss practice? I know he can't control vertigo, but if he's a guy that's missing practice, we got Andre Sam's a guy that's hungry. You got Javian Toviano's a freshman, talented incoming freshman safety that wants to play. You got Ashton Stamps, a freshman that's just soaking in information, like Matt House said, that wants to play. So with guys, if you're missing time, you're really, putting things in jeopardy. J.K. Johnson getting injured, J.K. Johnson, I'm not going to speculate anything, but now him getting injured, that just, you feel for him because you feel like he's just getting pushed down the depth chart. And even when he comes back from the injury, he's going to have a long road to go just to get, to challenge even for the 2 deep potentially. You're hearing good things from Denver Harris too. So hopefully Denver Harris, maybe he's in the mix. It's so I'm so interested to see who the starters are for the defensive backs. It's one of the main topic of conversation. Running back is interesting too, but you kind of get the feel with running back that like Noah Kane said, every guy's going to be ready for when they potentially get their name called. So I think even though running back is like an interesting topic as far as who's going to be the man, you kind of are comfortable. All those guys you're pretty comfortable in can carry the workload on a game-by-game basis. Like whoever has say against Florida State, for example, Noah Kane has the hot hand. Then he said, by what he said, he should be ready to go and carry the workload that game and potentially make some big-time runs that could, seal him that football game, have a late touchdown, finish at the goal line, convert a key 4th and short. So Noah Kane understands, and Josh Williams, Diggs, all the running backs they have, that when their name is called upon, they'll be ready. And the competitiveness they have in practice, they're ready to go. So that's the thing with defensive backs. You're not always rotating in defensive backs like running backs. I think that's why it's very intriguing, the position battles. But yeah, I would love to hear. I'm not sure why they haven't interviewed Harold Perkins. I think they have. I think they made some comment about, haven't interviewed him. Maybe he doesn't want to. I don't know. If you guys feel free to comment that. I don't know how they choose who to interview. I don't know if some guys make themselves available to the media. But yeah, it was interesting. I wanted to hear from Sage Ryan. Dellinger, I kind of wanted to hear from him. Will Campbell's a guy I wanted to hear from too. And not just because Will Campbell and Harold Perkins are two of their difference makers. I'm just curious to see how things are going from their point of view and what guys are standing out from in their perspective. But yeah, I like Will Campbell. So hopefully Will Campbell takes another step in the right direction this year. Do you feel like that? You feel like if any of these offensive linemen, especially Miles Frazier too, the reporter was saying Miles Frazier's kind of a forgotten about guy that's really talented on the old. You feel if any of these guys take a step back this year, you feel like that's a major, maybe not a major, but that's definitely a disappointment because as much hype as the offensive line's getting, you hear Dellinger talk about how they're playing so well as a cohesive unit. Any step any steps backwards would be really tough for the offensive line. But I like the reporters were asking him about. Yeah, asked Dellinger about Zealand's Hurd. And they asked him about Mason Lungsford. Does he like that they have guys that will fill in? And he said he said something along the lines of absolutely. I think having depth is good in case heaven forbid one guy goes down, you got another guy that can step in and play some meaningful snaps. And Mason Lungsford's a guy that's proven to play at a high level in Maryland. Zealand's Hurd, a big-time recruit who's got a good skill set. DJ Chester, I'd really like to hear how DJ Chester is doing. He's a guy that I really liked his tape a lot, so I'm intrigued to hear how he does, see where he is on the two deep. It'd be interesting to see. It looked like they were playing Hurd at right tackle, I want to say. It'd be interesting to see if they have Hurd as kind of the backup left tackle or right tackle. So, yeah, Florida State. I'm so anxious to see when that game starts. Who are the starting guys that run out to the field, and when they post little impact players, who are some of the impact players they know. So yeah, can't wait for the Florida State game. That is going to be fun, absolute blast, and I'm really looking forward to that football game. But yeah, I think Jackson McGowan though. Even if he's not ready as a blocker, I like that Denbrock had such high praise of the ability this guy has as a receiving threat. Gets off the line of scrimmage really well. I noticed that when he's running comeback routes or deep curl routes, he can really break down and come back to the ball nicely. Can win 50-50 balls, knows how to get open in the end zone, can come down with catches with a guy all over him. Made an absurd one-handed catch in his high school highlights. So, yeah, Jackson McGowan, LSU fans, you got to be really excited about what this guy's going to bring to this football team. So, yeah, Jackson McGowan, a guy that Mike Denbrock's had high praise for. I believe he had high praise for him also in the spring. So, yeah, talented football player, and excited to see what he does this season. But, yeah, I've touched on Mac Markway really looks the part at tight end. Markway making really a name for himself as a blocker, but does, Brian Kelly and so others have reiterated he does have the ability. He does have good hands, too. He's not just going to come in. He's not just going to be a blocker. He does have the ability. He is a dual threat in the sense that he can catch and he can block it at exceptionally high level. But, yeah, I'm excited to hear. I'd like to hear from Brian Kelly again, kind of how things are going. So, yeah, but it's fun. And, we're it seems we're getting closer, but still far away at this point. Kind of like to read who else is doing good in practice. So yeah, it's this time of year you're really getting amped up for the season. It's getting closer, and I'll be able to break down some games here shortly. That's what I'm really looking forward to is talking about some games, talking about who stands out. Who has a big game. Hopefully we're talking about a win against Florida State, who has a really big game, who really shines and goes off. So, yeah, that's going to be really fun and exciting to talk about here shortly. But, yeah, to me, so, yeah, I'd like to hear Denbrock or Matt House. I really like listening to Matt House. He's a high-energy guy that really seems to be passionate for what he does, and his NFL background I touched on is really helping them in recruiting. So yeah, Matt House, would love to hear from him again. I think he gives honest, true answers. Talks about, throws a lot of names out there how they're improving, and he touched on, like Denbrock, like Brian Kelly, nothing is set in stone as far as starting positions at this point, but does complement what guys are doing really well and stuff like that. And what guys need to make some improvement, which guys are doing well physically, which guys need to improve mentally. Denbrock referred to it as swimming, guys that are trying to get like Connor Gilbreath, the transfer JUCO tight end. So exciting stuff, getting closer to the season, guys. So thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.